So I got to show you this clip. This doc, Aseem Malhotra, in one presentation attacks stents for prevention, saturated fat concepts that, the concept that saturated fats are bad, and statins. Um, he takes on all three of these topics, again, all in one video. I will give you a link to that video, but I'm going to describe that a little bit first before we do. Here's the thing. For the most part, I agree with him. I think he didn't quite make it to the finish line with statins, but I think he's clearly correct on stents and saturated fats, and he's almost there on statins. So before we take a look, let me give you some background. Today we're going to do a video on an iconoclast, Aseem Malhotra. Who? We'll talk about that in just a minute. Wait a minute. What? What's an iconoclast? Joey Boombox was commenting on my video, Scaremongering, the Dubious Diagnosis editorial by Charles Pillar, where I debunked that to a large extent. And he called me an iconoclast, medical pharmacological iconoclast, Ford Brewer, doing God's work. God bless him and his family. Well, thank you again, Mr. Boombox, very, very much. I don't have the personality of an iconoclast, and in fact, I didn't quite remember the term. I had to look it up again. Iconoclast is a person who attacks cherished beliefs or institutions. Yeah, I guess some of that's correct. In fact, there are groups of people like the iconoclasm, anyhow, whatever, where it's a social belief that it's important to destruct icons and other images or monuments, most frequently for religious or political reasons. So I don't really have that kind of personality. I'm just trying to do my job, and my job is big enough. I'm trying to wipe out heart attack, stroke, dementia, most blindness, kidney disease, because most of it's preventable. So I'm not nearly as, again, thanks for the, I'll take it as a compliment, and thanks very much for it, but I don't have quite the, I'm a little bit more conflict avoidant. I just am trying to do my job. Now here's Aseem Malhotra. He's a physician. He's been an interventional cardiologist at the UK, so he's done plenty of stents. He's now with a local hospital, NHS Foundation Trust, author and clearly an iconoclast, and he clearly appears to enjoy conflict. You can see that from the title of some of his work, Killing for Profit. Now, I'm going to cover a video of his because he, in one presentation, takes direct aim at stents for preventive purposes, saturated fats, and statins. And I'll go ahead and give you the punchline. I think he's right. Clearly correct about stents. Stents, I've done a series on them where they don't work for prevention. The New England Journal, JAMA, plenty of other journals, the leading journals in medicine have made it very clear. Stents help with an event. Some events you can treat. A heart attack, a clot, you go in, you can often remove it with a stent and do good work there. But the vast majority of stents are being done to, quote, prevent a heart attack. And the literature is really clear that they don't. How about saturated fats? Another very political item in our space. And he says the same thing. In fact, I think he says sugars tended to go a long way towards killing his own mom, who was a vegetarian. And I see that all the time. I mean, you hear, we've got other videos. You've seen the video. Maybe you've seen the video with Chuck Smith, where Chuck lost 50 pounds on a vegan diet and then had a heart attack And then after reviewing this channel and some others, realized that there was a sugar problem. His triglyceride over HDL was 5. Now, here's the one place where I don't entirely agree with Dr. Malhotra, and it's on statins. I think he's mostly correct, but I don't think he goes far enough. He talks about statins being the devil, being very bad, and he goes into this David Diamond phenomenon of relative risk versus full risk. Now, I've done a ton of videos on statins, and again, pardon me if I'm getting to the punchline too early, but I want to get it out there. A lot of people only watch the first 30 seconds of a video anyway. Yes, I would agree, and I've said this multiple times. The vast majority of statin prescriptions, most of them are classically for atorvastatin or Lipitor high dose, and most of them are focused on dropping the cholesterol. Cholesterol is rarely the problem. I mean, it is sometimes, but it's not usually the biggest issue. The biggest issue is cardiovascular inflammation. And you don't need high dose, and Lipitor is not really the best for managing that. Although it does help, it helps far less with people with diabetes, which is the vast majority of the cases, and for women. So go with low dose and go with something that either doesn't increase insulin resistance, like a low dose Crestor, rosuvastatin, 5 milligrams per day or less, or go with a Livalo. It's now been shown that Livalo does actually decrease cardiovascular inflammation as well as insulin resistance. Talked maybe way too much. Let's go actually and look at his video.
So let me just give you one example here. So I trained as an interventional cardiologist. So essentially, having done cardiology, I subspecialized where I was doing, in layman's terms, keyhole heart surgery on patients. And I've done thousands of angiograms where you diagnose people with coronary artery disease from this in procedure. But also we do something called stents. Now, many of you may know of stents. Essentially, it's a procedure where we unblock people's arteries by passing a tube into the arteries and inflating a balloon and deploying a small metal scaffold. But the reality is that although it's life-saving for people having a heart attack, and I'll tell you exactly how life-saving that is later, for people who are not having a heart attack, people who have stable heart disease, it does not prevent heart attacks or prolong life. And we have very good extensive evidence for many, many years that it doesn't do that. But it's estimated in America almost half of all the procedures for stents on many, many patients costing millions and millions of dollars actually is carried out is of questionable value.
The one place I would disagree is it's way over half.
Despite this body of evidence. But most importantly, 88% of patients undergoing the procedure thought they were having the procedure for the very purpose which it doesn't benefit them. And when anonymously asked, 43% of cardiologists said they would still go ahead and do the procedure, even if they felt it would not benefit the patient. Now, this is not a procedure that doesn't come with harms. So at the end of mid-2013, and then following on several months later, I wrote 2 consecutive editorials by coincidence. The first one was in the BMJ, called Too Much Angioplasty, and the second one was in JAMA Internal Medicine. And the first article...
So he goes on to describe that issue. So next, he starts getting into the whole issue of relative risk versus absolute risk. That's the David Diamond argument about statins.
Okay, so misunderstanding of health statistics is also a major risk factor for misinformation. So many doctors, surprisingly, don't understand health statistics and therefore cannot evaluate evidence for and against a treatment. So in one study several years ago of 150...
He goes on to talk about other examples. Let's skip over and hear what he has to say about it. Actually, he's very correct about this issue. Docs don't understand statistics. They just, and that's a problem. So in the next clip, he takes a shot, again, some accurate information. Number one, he makes the point that 80% of heart attack and stroke prevention is lifestyle. Again, I would think maybe a little bit more than that. The other thing he starts to take on is this issue about saturated fats. And again, I've done several videos on those. I'll give you the information on how to find this clip. As you may see in here, it's from a fellow named Santino Ryder. It's a small channel, but again, a great clip.
And in the editorial, they said that there was no mortality benefit. In other words, you will not live one day longer from taking a statin. But also, he suggested actually we should be concentrating more on lifestyle changes. 80% of heart disease is related to lifestyle, diet, exercise, that kind of thing, smoking reduction. And by coincidence, in the same paper, in the same journal of the BMJ, I also wrote an editorial which was called "Saturated Fat is Not the Major Issue," and that editorial was press released by the BMJ and became a big news story. It was front page of 3 newspapers.
So again, very interesting video. I'll put a link to it in my description. Like I said, he's a real iconoclast. He's got the personality for it. He appears to love the conflict. Most of the information he's putting out there, I would agree with. Again, he missed the issue about cardiovascular inflammation, and I can tell you from studying him, he's not that much aware of it. And low-dose statins that deal with that, like rosuvastatin and pitavastatin. Thank you again for your interest. If you hit the like button, and for sure if you subscribe or share, the algorithm reads that as a strong message that humans think this is interesting and important information. And the algorithm can share it more than any of us humans. Speaking of sharing, one of the best ways of sharing is on social media. We've got active Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn activities going on right now. We've recently started up things in Pinterest and Twitter, so we'd love to see you there. Check us out. Finally, with over 500 videos, a lot of people are saying, I can't find this video or that video. Our new social media manager, Kim Hermosa, is starting to work on ways to help with that. So join the community. You can click on the links below, and you can get a little bit better access. Thank you again for your interest.